Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Brenda Campbell here. I'm a certified Zentangle teacher, or CZT, but I do lots of different types of art. Today we are going to talk about some tiles that I colored in my previous video. So let me just show you here. They're all dry now. We did 4, if you remember. The first 2 we tried to do rainbow colors. It was not a wonderful success, but I believe in no mistakes. I was very unhappy with them when it was wet. They are much better now. But that color is all going to kind of fade to the background as we draw on top of it. These are the other 2 tiles that we did yesterday. We did these with just green and blue. It's predominantly green and green blue with a little bit of green on the top. It's kind of cool. I'm not sure what I'm going to use those for. I'm going to save these for another day, another video. But today we're going to work on one of these 2 tiles. We're not going to do them both, but I'll do them both later. But today we're just going to do these 2. So, okay, let's start. This one's a little darker. I'm going to go ahead and start with that one. So, before we pick up any of our pen or pencil, I want to start with step 1 of the Zentangle Method, which is gratitude and appreciation. And so I think of this as a little mini class. What I'd like you to do is just take a moment to close your eyes. Promise it won't be long. Take a couple of deep breaths, breathing in and stretching up, and breathing out and relaxing down. And one more breath in and out. Okay, it's as simple as that. If you want, add to this experience, think of something right now that you're grateful for. Don't think long, just grab the first thing that pops into your head. So put that in your mind, and we'll pick up our pencil and we'll get started on our tile. So I'm going to go ahead with step 2. Even though this is a Zentangle inspired art project, I'm still going to go through all of the steps of the Zentangle method. Well, most of the steps. We can break the rules when we're doing ZIA. Anyway, I am going to do corners, corner dots, and a border. Now, if you are drawing along, which I hope you are, if you've used watercolor, I don't know if you've used something else, I can't really talk to that, but I know with watercolor, the pencil will never go away unless you erase it. And once it's underneath the paint, it won't go away even with an eraser. So we're drawing on top. We're probably going to use the pencil anyway for shading when we get to step 6. So I'm not going to worry about that. The string that we're going to do today is, we're not going to do it in pencil. We're going to pick up our pen and do it in pen. I'm going to use a Micron PN today in black. I like black, the contrast of a solid dark black over top of a colorful background. So, and I also like a little bit wider nib, which is why I use the PN. PN stands for plastic nib, but at any rate, I digress. So what we're going to draw today is a tangle pattern called Huggins, and it starts with circles. And you can do this in a grid, so a grid of circles, or you can just do them randomly. When you do them randomly, we call that crazy Huggins. Today we're going to try and do a bit of a grid just to keep it simple. So I am going to start, let's see, I'm going to divide this top into 3. So I'm going to do round in the corner, and in the other corner, and then a third of the way over, and another third of the way over. So now I've got my 4 dots across, but 3 rows. And now I'm going to turn my tile the other way and figure out how many I'm going to have going this direction. So I'm going to put another one in the corner here. And I am going to go about the same distance. We'll see how many. Actually, why don't I just divide it in half, and then I'll divide each of these like I did above into thirds. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 circles. So now I just have to try to fill in the grid. And it doesn't matter, by the way, how large or small these circles are. I like to say there's no mistakes, so I say follow whatever you feel like doing. Whatever the Spirit moves you to do, I'll say. So, turn around this way for the last ones. Okay, so I have my grid all filled in with my circles. Now, I'm going to leave them open for now. We'll probably do something with them later, but I'm going to go to the next step in our pattern, which is Huggins, if you recall. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw C shapes, kind of shallow C, like the letter C for cat shapes. We're going to draw them in, we're going to start and draw them backwards. And if you just watch here, I'm going to kind of go around the circle and come around that way. And I'm going to alternate. So I did this one, I'll skip down to there, and I'll do the same thing down here. Now I'm going to turn it around and do it the same way, but on the opposite. So I'm going to go this way around these two circles, and this way around these two circles. Now, what we're going to do here in the center is we're turning it, and so we're going to draw the same shape, the same thing we just did, but we're going to do it in the different direction, the opposite direction. So Huggins is kind of a woven looking tangle. And now that you know the basics, and we can go here also and close off the ends, we can go ahead and fill in the rest of the pattern. And remember, everything is opposites, so Okay, so now I have my basic tangle, just circles and lines. You can see it's kind of looks like maybe ribbons that weave underneath each other, kind of goes under and over and under and over. It's kind of a cool little pattern, but it looks kind of plain, so I'm going to do a little decorating of it. And I always start, well, usually start with an aura, which, as you should know, is a line that goes right next to the line next to it in the same fashion. It auras the line next to it, just like, think of ripples coming out from a point in the water where you might throw a stone. Those ripples are each an aura of the original. So I'm just going to go through and do, these are kind of like the sides of the shapes. If I think of this is the top and this is the bottom, then I'm auraing the sides. On the inside, obviously. I'm trying to remember to tell you everything, so if you follow along, you'll know what I'm doing. Nothing to think about except the line you're drawing right now. You don't have to worry about the one you just did or the one you're going to do next. Just think about right now and this line. Okay. Now, interestingly, or not so much, if you will, you notice that these little shapes are all different sizes. I've got this one down here that's a really tiny skinny, and then I've got these up here which are much bigger and fatter. So if I want to continue to decorate, which I do, I'm going to have to think about just what it is I want to add to these little spaces. If you're familiar with fragments and reticula, I can think of each of these as a reticula, something that holds the fragment or the pattern, the mini pattern. So I think I'm going to be mindful of this one, which is the thinnest. And all of these going this direction, I am going to put orbs in, just to keep it simple. But I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to fill up the space, and I'm going to make the orbs larger to fit in the space. Let's just start in the middle on all of these. See how it goes. Then we'll turn it around and do the other half. I find that to be a lot easier for me. orbs get larger as my reticula get larger. But I think that's going to make for kind of a cool pattern in the end. So I'm looking forward to seeing what is revealed. Okay, now I'm going to turn it around, do the same thing on the other half of each of these. Okay, so there's my first decoration. I might do more with that, but for now I'm just going to leave that alone and try to decide what pattern I want to put in the ones that go across this direction. So I kind of like the pattern Rain. It's a very simple pattern, but it's still kind of cool in my opinion. So I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to start in the middle with a zigzaggy line. And it doesn't have to be the same width. It gets a little bit more interesting if you vary the zigzag, but you don't want it to be too close to the edges, which is why I did not choose to do it in this little tiny skinny space. So they're kind of shallow zigzags. So I thought after I drew all these lines that it was probably not the right step. So the crooked line is actually step 2. You start with a straight line. So I am going to put that straight line in next and assume everything will be just fine. Okay, so I have made a mistake. Oh no, not a mistake. But that's okay. I shall overcome, or I will create a whole new pattern. Okay, so I kind of filled in. This is what you do when you think you've made a mistake. You just take what you have and you do your best to work with it. So now I am going to fill in all these little triangles I created. Even though I did it backwards, it's still going to be fine. And I'm going to fill them in with solid black. And I like to do this again when there's color in the background, because it really adds a lot of nice drama and contrast to the color. Just the black, the solid black against the color stands out. And that's what makes our work memorable, I guess. It's what makes someone stop and take a look at it, even if they don't know that's what it is. At least I think that contrast and drama make a piece very much more interesting. And when I do a piece and I'm not happy with it, it's almost always because there's not enough of one or the other, contrast or drama. So I might have to call this one my wonky rain, because I make my triangles just kind of ad hoc, and it's going to look different, but that's okay. Another thing you should note when you're working over top of watercolor or any other medium is, how does your ink or the other mediums you were using, how do they work together? And I can see I'm having a little bit more trouble getting the black to fill in over top of the watercolor here. Not sure why. Usually I don't have that problem, but that's okay. I'm not worried about it. I'm just letting you know that sometimes you'll run into that. Okay, keeping on with my solid black triangles. I can kind of sculpt these a little bit as I go if I feel like I need to, if they're too small. So these are just like patterns that slip underneath this ribbon going that way. It's kind of cool. Thus the woven tangle. See, I knew I didn't have to draw crazy Huggins to make mine look a little off. Mine is not ever really like it's supposed to be. Mine is always different. And I bet yours is too. That's because each of us is different. Okay. Making progress. I like my PN over my watercolor because it stands up a little better than the other nibs. But I'm going to use one of the other nibs in the next step on this pattern because some of these spaces are pretty tight. And I figure if I have a smaller pen, I'll be able to fit it in better. So we'll see how that works with the watercolor. It usually works okay as long as I'm not pushing it down too hard. So one thing about these Sakura micron pens is if you put too much pressure on the pen, which I have a heavy hand, so I'm always fighting this, then what you do is you actually stop the ink from flowing out. So you need to raise it up a little bit off the paper, let it breathe, I guess you could say, and then the ink will start flowing. I don't know, might help if you were to think of it as like a little paintbrush tip. when you draw this pattern correctly, you get a zig on one side and a zag on the other side. So your points are all opposite. But because I had to kind of make my own, mine are not. So you see I have 2 that go this way, 2 that go this way, actually 3. So I tried to put some that are opposites in there where I could. Anyway, so let's do the next step. And like I said, because the space is small, I am now going to use my 01 pen. It's got a much smaller nib on it. This one looks like I might have pushed it down. I do that too. So now we are going to aura the shapes in this pattern. And if we run out of room to the edge of our reticulum here, then we'll just draw behind it, and that'll be fine. But I'm just making kind of a narrow aura. See, this is kind of a wonky shape. That's okay. And here I went behind, right here. Let's go down this one. And then we'll go down this one. Okay, that is the basic tangle rain, and I have just decorated it 2 different ways. I am going to put my pen down now, and I'm going to pick up my chalk, my graphite pencil, and I'm going to start shading. And I'm going to start by coming up underneath where each one of these spots where the pattern goes underneath the one above it. Now black, I try not to put any more graphite on top of the black. It's already as dark as it's going to get, and the graphite kind of dulls it. But you can always go back over it with black, so with more ink, so don't worry too much about it. Okay, turn it this way and get the other sides. I don't always use graphite to shade over watercolor, but it works just fine, and with the Zentangle method, it's what I know in terms of shading for these patterns. So that's what I do sometimes, and that's what we're doing on this tile. So now I'm going to, this is just one direction. I still need to go in and add to the other, but that's okay. Now I am blending this in with a tortillon, I am trying to blend gently. Some people will say it's like tickling the graphite. You're not really pushing it down too hard. You're just kind of tickling it around. And that's what we're trying to do. Now, I know yesterday I said that these tiles would dry flat, and they're not quite flat, but that's okay. It's close enough. And you can see it's curling up here on the ends, but you can just kind of gently bend it, and it flattens out a little bit more. I can put a little weight on top of it too, set a book on top of it for a while, and that'll flatten it out. So much better than some other papers that I use in my mixed media art. But I do like watercolor on these white Zentangle tiles. And I like the size of the 5 tiles too. 3 by 5 is just a really nice size. Got a spot here. Missed doing this one. Okay, so let me see. What do I do next? I think I need a little graphite here. So I'll do that before I move on. And that would be the same thing up here. Even though we didn't draw any more out, it still will looks a little strange when I don't have anything in there. So we'll put a little graphite there, and then we'll blend it out. Okay, now we still have to go in and do the opposite sides, the opposite direction ribbons, I guess. It's kind of hard in these darker sections down here. The pencil just kind of shines. I guess, especially when I start blending it, the tortilla. Okay, do it this way. I think I got them all, but I'll find out soon enough. think that is all of the shading for the ribbons. And we've got some dark contrast with the rain tangle. So I think what I want to do next is add some white chalk and get some white contrast in here. So let's do this. Okay, wait a minute. Change my mind. One more black. One more thing I'm going to do with the black. All of my grid circles, the ones we started with, I am going to go ahead and fill all of these in with solid black, and I'll add space for a little sparkle on each one of them. But I just wanted to add this little bit of extra contrast drama here now that I've got my shading done. And this will also set them apart from the orbs that are inside the tangle that goes that one direction. Even though they're all the same shape, those are the ones I'm going to add white chalk to. So they'll look like white pearls, and these will look a little bit like black pearls. All right, so now I can pick up my white chalk pencil, and I am going to add white chalk to all of my orbs inside. I'm going to try to keep the chalk inside the circle and not go over the black ink, but no one's perfect, and certainly not me. So don't get too crazy about it. I'm just doing my best, especially with these smaller ones. And we're going to blend these out with a tortillon. So sometimes, though, I think that actually takes away a lot more of the white, but we can always add more if we need to. I try to kind of press it into the paper as I'm laying it down so it stays and not as much gets taken away with the tortillon. But you'll still lose some. That's okay. The graphite that we did first still keeps the shade for us, even though we put the white over it, because it's still kind of a darker, like a grayer white, like it would be with the shade. That's okay. It's a nice extra level of contrast, I think. Okay. A little bit extra where the graphite was. Oops, missed one here. Okay. Now I'm going to put down my chalk pencil. And I like to blow off the chalk so it doesn't smear too much. But I see that I have a little section. I've got a couple of areas where it kind of jumped out from where it was supposed to be. So I can fix that, I think, by going in and drawing over the black line again. Doing all these that are shaded first. Because they definitely get darker and I blend them. Okay, now I'm gonna kind of like wipe off my tortillon. I used a bit of a paper towel over here to do that. And as I blend, I'm kind of pushing it down again into the paper. And I don't want to take it all up, because I want to keep it as much as I can. in fact, I think I'm going to go over each one of these lines because the graphite kind of dulled them up a little bit. Between that and the white chalk, it's looking much better adding this extra black ink over top of the graphite. Really does make a big difference. Looks like I somehow missed putting chalk here. Okay. Well, I think that looks pretty good so far. Now I have one last thing I want to do, and that is I want to add some white highlights with my white gel pen. And I'm going to start with all of these dots on my black pearls. They're not white highlights, they're whatever color is underneath. So I am going and adding the white. Sometimes the watercolor comes up from underneath into the white gel, and if you wait long enough you can add another layer of white on top of it if you want. It's up to you. So I've got all my highlights on my black pearls. I could add a white highlight to each one of these, but I'm not sure it's going to show that well. So I don't think I'm going to bother with that. Okay, I am going to put my white pen away. I see another spot where I need to add another black line. Hopefully I don't have any others. You know, I'm just looking at one other thing I think I might do. I might, once I try, I can't go back. I'm adding a little white line where I put the aura around my rain. I just thought that looked like it needed a little bit more contrast. And I'm trying to leave that black ink line alone. Doesn't have to fill the space completely. Okay. I think I'm going to call this one done. And I'm going to find a spot to put my chop. I think I'll put it down here. I'm going to turn it over, but I don't want that ink to smear. So I'm going to make sure it doesn't take that long to dry. So we've done our initial, our chop, we've signed and dated it. The only thing left is step 8, to appreciate it. So we take and we look at it, and we turn it around, look at it all different directions. Decide if we like one better than another, although I rarely do. And so there we have it. Now, I know that the other watercolor piece we did was not the same, didn't look exactly the same. It's a little bit lighter, but I'm going to put this out here so you can look at them side by side and see what you think. Like I said, it doesn't really matter what the background looks like. It kind of falls away underneath all of the tangling. Underneath the tangling and the chalk and the shading. I kind of like working over top of watercolor and having a little color in my art. And that's all there is for this video. I want to thank you again for watching. If you did enjoy this, please consider liking, and that way more people can see it and others can enjoy it as well. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you back here soon. Bye.